Welcome to CryptoLand. I'm Krishna Andavolu, and today we're talking about banning Bitcoin in China and what that means for the rest of the world. Until recently, China was one of the places to go if you had a crypto mining business. That is until this year when the Chinese Communist Party decided to put a blanket ban on cryptocurrencies. Now, there's a mass exodus of mining businesses looking for plentiful, cheap electricity to power their computers and a friendly place to settle where regulations won't shut them down. Vice went to Western New York to take a look at how massive Chinese mining operations are finding a new home.
This site here used to be a coal factory that was powering a car manufacturer. Back in the dirtier days of this site, it used coal and it created a lot of very disgusting carbon footprint. As you can see, it's a massive mountain. It's been there for many years, and we're cleaning all this out now.
And you've had to find sites like these all across the United States.
Yeah, it needs to be large warehouse space, source of energy that is not expensive.
And you scour the country for it.
We literally did scour the country for it. Here's the thing, when you try to ban something that's decentralized, good luck.
Niagara Falls has been struggling for decades. Its population has been cut in half over the last 50 years. But Sam Tabar and his team have a pretty ambitious vision for the old city. Turn it into a hub for Bitcoin mining.
This is a lot of the equipment that all came from China. This used to be a factory, as you can see.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
This is very cyberpunk dystopian.
That's what I thought of the Blade
now.
Runner thing. Yeah. Yeah. This is actually the Great Migration. You see machines all around. They're all in saran wrap. Unfortunately, if these are not boxed correctly or packaged correctly, they will not survive the trip.
Until 2021, about 2/3 of all Bitcoin mining happened in China. But then the country banned all crypto, mining and trading. That left companies like BitDigital scrambling to find new places to set up their mining machines, known as ASICs. It's why they moved their mines to this warehouse in Niagara Falls.
Wow. So these all came from China.
Lots of them. They had to be taken from our facilities in China. They had to be packaged very properly, make sure that all the dust is out of the machines, packaged in this sort of way, and then put into the ports, and at these ports they were put into boats. It's a very complicated logistical nightmare in a way to bring this entire fleet from China to the United States, which we did successfully, but it was a headache. So each machine has to go through diagnostics to see if it survived the journey. There was a time where you could just mine Bitcoin in your mom's basement.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that now because there are these large-scale industrial Bitcoin miners who are using specialized equipment.
BitDigital has set up shop at a few spots in the US, Nebraska, Georgia, Texas, anywhere with cheap electricity. And with one of the biggest hydroelectric plants in the country, Niagara Falls has plenty.
You ready?
Oh my God.
Printing money.
Over the last 18 months, BitDigital has moved 30,000 ASICs out of China into new locations in the US, and each one is worth about $10,000.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100,000. 800,000.
Not to mention this entire facility, but yeah.
This is like $1 million here. $1 million. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's $8 million worth of ASICs.
Yeah, there are many rows.
Wow. Holy shit.
Erica Huang leads BitDigital, which, like many crypto companies, launched in China.
Yeah, this is a S17 Plus.
Can you take it out?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
They're pretty heavy. But they're just like, PS5.
It says Shenzhen. Yeah, it's made in China for sure. It was mining in China. Why was so much Bitcoin mining happening in China?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's simply because those miners are manufactured in China. And also, China has a lot of energy.
China banned crypto-related activities in part to cut down on runaway energy usage. But Bitcoin is also pretty much the opposite of things that the Chinese Communist Party loves. It's a largely unknown innovation that really can't be controlled. These decisions by Beijing are big. It seems incredible in some ways because China is disconnecting its economy from this financial innovation. Is that a mistake?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. Yeah, I think we should have more freedom and more space for the industry to grow. I was telling people, all our miners are out of China, including me. I'm one of the miners. And I mean, in terms of the crypto industry, a lot of people are moving to, for example, Singapore or Hong Kong or United States or some other parts of the country.
Following the ban, prospectors in China rushed to make sure they didn't lose their investments, because every minute a machine isn't powered up is a minute it isn't making money. And with new technology coming out all the time, it's also 1 minute closer to the machine becoming obsolete. Do you think Bitcoin is entering a new phase,
Right.
a more mature phase after the Wild West Gold Rush days where things were just sort of crazy in China, then it got banned and everything moved out so quickly?
There was a lot of talk about Bitcoin mining and how most of that was happening in China. And there was a lack of transparency that was going on there. And there were a lot of rumors and people just not understanding what these miners were doing and what sources of power they were using and so on. And so, in a way, it was a great thing that this Bitcoin mining ban happened because that entire industry has now moved to the United States.
What's the case for Bitcoin mining in the United States?
The United States has a very well-established rule of law where an entrepreneur can work without feeling like the rug will be pulled from under him or her. It's very important to have that jurisdictional stability. There's a process, there's a due process, it's public, it's transparent.
So we've been driving around the upstate New York region, and it's clear there used to be a lot of industry here. But this, for example, is an abandoned warehouse, and it looks like it used to make Wonder Bread. The mayor of Niagara Falls has welcomed mining as a way to help finally revitalize an economy that has been in decline since the 1960s. Quite a few Bitcoin mining operations have decided to set up in the region. Do you welcome that in your city?
The single biggest problem right now, and it hits, I'd say, a majority of Northeast cities, is poverty. How do we lift the city of Niagara Falls out of poverty? Industries like Bitcoin mining, data centers, those are the technological industries that are sort of starting to grab a foothold in many communities. And they also provide not only high-skilled jobs, but also jobs for those people just entering the job market.
The idea that mining equals jobs is appealing, but there's not a lot of evidence to support it. Once mines are set up, they only need a few people to keep them running. Still, across the US, mayors and governors are welcoming crypto mines to their cities and states. The US has officially passed China as the country with the most mining activity in the world. It seems as if quite a few Bitcoin mining operations have decided to set up in the region. Do you welcome that in your city?
Obviously, we welcome them to the extent that they recognize our commitment to the environment. A lot of today's technological industries, Bitcoin mining, data centers, they heavily rely upon energy consumption.
There are quite a few mayors, cities, counties, states competing to attract Bitcoin miners to their regions. How do you sell the city competitively?
Currently, we are looking to try and establish a standalone director of economic development. Some person, he or she would be the salesperson. Right now I'm it. So I'm out there working to get people to take a look at Niagara Falls as a real reasonable location.
American politicians are not the only ones competing for crypto's business. This is an international contest. Some operations have gone to places as unexpected as the former Soviet state and now country of Kazakhstan, which offer the freewheeling feel of crypto's early days in China. Energex has helped Chinese operators relocate to their sites.
Мы одна из первых стран, которые легализовали майнинг как бизнес. Но также дополнительным преимуществом является относительно недорогая цена на электроэнергию, очень хороший климат, сухой, прохладный климат, который позволяет работать оборудованию на протяжении долгого периода времени.
Some would argue that North America is more stable and predictable. And there might be people who wonder whether Kazakhstan would ban Bitcoin mining overnight, just like China did.
Да, мы считаем, что подобные опасения, наверное, у иностранных инвесторов присутствуют. Но, как я уже ранее говорил, данный закон уже был принят. И отменить этот закон – это потеря, репутационные потери для всего государства. Поэтому данный закон никто не будет отменять.
But just a few months after China's ban, Kazakhstan dramatically limited the amount of power that prospectors could tap into, saying it would be rolled back by up to 95%, which for people like Tabar only confirms the choice of the US.
As you can see, what happened in Kazakhstan, you could wake up one day and suddenly there is a cap on the energy that you can use for these miners and so on. That wouldn't happen in the United States. Again, there's rule of law, there's transparency on decision making. It's not just some bureaucrat just making all the decisions in a top-down manner with no deliberation. Bitcoin inherently is not something you can really control. It's decentralized. So as you can see, when they banned Bitcoin, it didn't really do anything. It kind of backfired in a way. If they thought they were going to destroy Bitcoin, that never happened. It's a decentralized force. And China understands, or is slowly understanding, that it cannot control a decentralized force.
Crypto miners may be moving out of China, but they're flocking to the US, and it's opening a Pandora's box on just how the industry should be regulated. From Miami to Iowa, local mayors are having to decide what the crypto industry looks like on their turf. Regulating crypto is something that's even caught the attention of lawmakers at the federal level. Here to get into what's been going on are Motherboard's Jordan Pearson and Neeraj Agrawal of Coin Center. Thank you guys for joining me. A lot to go over because this is super interesting. There's a lot in the weeds here about the details. But let's start at the beginning, because I guess all of this wouldn't be happening had China not put a blanket ban on cryptocurrencies mining. So Jordan, take me through what happened there, why, and how it's going down.
Yeah, so this is something that has really kind of been percolating for almost a decade. Several years ago, they banned banks from handling cryptocurrency. And then, even as early as 2019, really, there were sort of indications that next would be mining. And I think at the time, the government said it was something to do with like environmental priorities, that type of thing. And then fast forward to this year, and basically there's a blanket ban. As for why this happened, I'm no China expert, but there's a lot of well-informed speculation about this. Probably the biggest one is capital controls. Obviously, Bitcoin is not controlled by the government. It's sort of an escape hatch, or it can be an escape hatch for large sums of money that can move across the internet and outside borders. It can be challenging to fit into a taxation regime. Now we're in a situation where a lot of these miners and businesses are seeking more stable regulatory regimes, let's say, and finding themselves in the States. I mean, I'm interested in, what lawmakers are saying about this and where this is headed in terms of regulation, because I think this isn't just going to continue like this in this sort of like undirected Wild West, despite the crypto industry sort of coming up with trade groups. There's like a mining council that essentially promotes like the renewable mix of Bitcoin mining. So, I mean, I feel like until now, this has been done at the municipal level in terms of like what permits get handed out and which don't. That align with like, green priorities and this type of thing. But this is really just one aspect of the regulatory conversation I think we're having or we're going to be having in North America and currently are.
So but as you're saying, Jordan, like the energy is one issue, and that issue is going to be played out on a deal by deal level almost. But there are other regulatory issues to consider as well. And I think, Neeraj, I want to talk to you about that because as I understand it, you represent a think tank for crypto.
Yeah, a cryptocurrency think tank is a real thing. And so I guess now 6 years ago, it became clear that this technology was going to be important and that lawmakers were going to have questions about it because it strays into areas that regulators care about. Coin Center started, a few interested people came together and were like, we gotta, academics and so on, we're like, we have to self-appoint as the representative of the technology and the network themselves. So not the companies that are building on it, but the network. And that's what we try to do. We're self-appointed. And gratefully, we have the support of the cryptocurrency community. So what we do is first, just simply we educate policymakers about literally how this works, why it's important, right? That this is a serious thing that's worth considering.
That sounds like no easy task.
It's gotten easier of late, but when we started, I started 2015 and I couldn't get anybody to pick up the phone, right? I mean, it just, not only was it cryptocurrency, but it was cryptocurrency policy, which is the most boring part. At least, maybe I'm selling myself short. But so we educate, then we also identify places where the law doesn't account for this type of technology and what's possible. And then we research and develop solutions for those gray areas that we think would allow the network to thrive and protect privacy, so on and so forth. And then finally, we advocate, we lobby for those solutions where needed.
Now let's talk about regulation on a much more gross level, which is to say a town could say, yo, we don't want Bitcoin here. Right? The city council could pass an ordinance. A state could say that to some degree for whatever reason. So does cryptocurrency force us to kind of rethink what a product is, how an individual community can regulate whether that product is made, sold, or bought in their town?
We've done some reporting on different towns that have essentially put bans on new Bitcoin mines. Yeah, so I mean, we're absolutely seeing this. Towns are dealing with this kind of whether they want to or not, because you've sort of put your finger on it already. There's money there, there's companies, they're going to where they need to go to make money. So a utility or a municipality in that situation has no choice but to sort of figure out what the hell they're doing here with all of these new businesses that are kind of knocking down their door. In Plattsburgh, New York, which was a place that put a moratorium ban on new Bitcoin mines, they did that because they have a power market arrangement where they only have a certain amount of cheap renewable power. And, that would go to residents and stuff. But now Bitcoin miners were sort of sucking it up. So they put a ban on that. In other places, it could just be all of a sudden we've got shipping containers popping up everywhere and they're ugly and people are mad about it. There was even a case in Canada where a Bitcoin mine essentially set up a rogue power plant. They just did it. They just tapped into a dormant natural gas well. They set up massive generators and just started setting up a power plant and doing it. And then literally the local community there is what's all this noise going on? So at that point, people don't have a choice, but to sort of engage with this and regulate it in a sense and really just figure out what they're even going to do with the situation that they're now in. So I'll let Neeraj handle the wider regulatory implications from there. But yeah, it's absolutely
follow up on that for a second, because a Bitcoin mine, crypto mine coming to a community near you, that's kind of what I'm hearing from both of you, which is, both okay, cool. And also wait, is that what people want? Is that a good thing? So I guess and this is a broader question, but what is the educational component that needs to happen to communities around the US to be hey, this isn't just a criminal enterprise that you're letting into your community?
So the argument that I would make, and I think everyone comes to Bitcoin for sort of their own reasons, but I'm interested in sort of the privacy and autonomy element in particular, its use in like authoritarian countries, things like that. So that's the argument I would make, that it's a good thing. But ultimately, yeah, it's going to come down to the local residents of those towns making the decision. So hopefully there's some advocate in town that can do that. I think there are more and more people every day who are comfortable talking about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and are passionate that these are a good thing in the world.
I mean, education is a massive problem with regards to like when mines move in. Like I'm actually thinking of one specific example, like in Greenwich, New York, there is a fossil fuel power plant that was going to shut down, but basically saved itself by mining Bitcoin with fossil fuels. And this is like a major issue in the community. And it actually it went viral, that this claim that basically they were like turning the lake into a hot tub. And like, so obviously, you know, the largest glacial lake in the US is not a boiling hot tub because of Bitcoin. And I think that's, you know, not necessarily particularly helpful. I think this is like a big issue. I
just was reminded of a pretty funny headline that also went viral, which I think in 2017 or 18, there was a headline that Bitcoin was on track to use all of the Earth's power by 2020.
I remember that, yeah. I remember that, just believing that, actually.
Yeah, so that obviously didn't happen or come anywhere close to that. But that's the kind of example of something that's just like unhelpful. One advantage of the mining industry coming to America is in America, a lot of these companies are publicly traded. They have comms teams, and you know they are willing to explain themselves, I guess. And so we're getting better data about the energy mix.
These executives could be called in front of a Senate panel.
Yes.
Right, and maybe the senators might not know how it works, but their aides probably do, right? And then you guys are out there, and maybe there's going to be another lobbying front that comes up. So this is another, like, the world that we live in today about cryptocurrency isn't the world that we're going to live in 10 years when it's more developed, when it looks like what it's going to become. Environmental stuff and local politics stuff is one thing. And yes, as Jordan, you're saying, that will be played out a million times in a million different towns. But what is the foundation of the regulatory framework versus the privacy of what crypto should look like?
So our financial surveillance regime, known as AML, anti-money laundering, and KYC, know your customer, among other things, all stems from the Bank Secrecy Act, which was passed in the 70s. And the Bank Secrecy Act was built off of this third-party doctrine, where you surrender your right to privacy if you use an intermediary. Okay. Back then, couldn't even imagine a Venmo-type thing taking over. Now, of course, every transaction flows through an intermediary. So the every dollar we spend is subject to surveillance. That is where cryptocurrencies, I think, come in and offer the most sort of benefit to society. That it's a way to operate legally outside of the surveillance, the surveilled financial system, because you are not moving through the intermediary. So my so-called unhosted wallet, not a Coinbase wallet, to your unhosted wallet, to enter into that relationship and spy on it is simply too intrusive. And so that's our backstop.
That's not really the world of Bitcoin for most people, right? Like everyone's using a big centralized thing, like a Coinbase.
And you're right that most people use a custodian that is a third party for their transactions. However, what's different is you have the option to use the unhosted wallet. You can use it.
It's there.
It's there for those who need it.
And what you're saying is it being there underpins its value.
Yes, that is what makes it a check on the system.
Is that threatened to go away? Like, are there Are people proposing regulations that would actually intrude upon that?
In the final 2 weeks of the Trump administration, the Treasury Department dropped what's so-called midnight rulemaking. So as they're running out the door. So typically a rulemaking process is 90 days. We had, I think, 14 days that came over New Year's and Christmas. So it was a complete, it was a pretty big violation of process. And that the rule that was being proposed would start to intrude on the so-called unhosted wallets.
What you're saying is we need to think about the unhosted wallet as sacrosanct.
Yes.
Because maybe in the future, the unhosted wallet is the way it could be for all of us, because we don't have to score gold in our basement anymore.
Yeah, and it's also important to note that we in the US enjoy a pretty stable financial system, right?
True.
So it's hard to, that's actually been a problem that we've had, is it's hard to impress on somebody the importance of having your sort of stack of cash or gold or whatever under the mattress. But in other parts of the world, Lebanon, whatever, it's chaos out there in the financial world. So in a case like that, having your money in your pocket, your digital pocket, is massive.
That's actually a really important point, I think, because otherwise, like, my pushback all comes from like, Niraj, that's not how it's working now.
Yeah,
so like, why are we even talking about needing this to happen this way? But I think seeing it from that perspective, it's like, okay, you need to make sure that the gears of political, corporate machines don't run over the little baby at the center of all this.
Yes.
Jordan, like, just to wrap it up with you, like, if a crypto mine comes to your town and you see a bunch of moral panic about it, like, there's ways to like raise your hand at the town council meeting and be like, guys, like, let's be real. What we're talking about is privacy. What we're like, let's maybe even make sure that the mine gives us all money. Some shit like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a position on like whether someone should think it's like, go to bat for it or not. I think this is not going anywhere. I think that as it continues to become like bigger business in the States, like, we're going to see more interaction with government, and regulation is coming one way or the other. So I think it behooves, almost anyone to sort of figure out what's actually going on here, and come up with, some sense of where they stand on it and what the stakes of the issue actually are. And then, yeah, if you feel like it, go and say your piece where it, has a democratic impact in your community.
All right, well, thank you guys both for joining me today, and thank you guys for watching.